Seth Rollins showed up at Elimination Chamber disguised in a mask, attacked Logan Paul, stomped Paul Heyman on Raw, and got himself arrested, all while not being medically cleared to wrestle. The man came back to WWE television and has not stopped creating problems for the Vision since. So let us walk through everything that has happened since Seth Rollins came back, starting with how he got hurt in the first place. To understand why Seth Rollins came back the way he did, you have to go back to October 2025. Seth Rollins suffered a torn rotator cuff in his match against Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel. That match was a champion versus champion bout, and during the course of it, Rollins did damage to his shoulder that would require surgery. Now, at that point in the story, Rollins was the World Heavyweight Champion. He was the leader of the Vision, a faction he himself had built from the ground up. He brought Braun Breaker in. He brought Bronson Reed in. Paul Heyman was in his corner. This was his creation. He ran it, he built it, and then he got hurt. What happened next is the part that matters. Rollins was attacked by Braun Breaker and kicked out of the Vision, and forced to vacate his World Heavyweight Championship. Just 2 days after Crown Jewel, on the October 13th edition of Raw, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed attacked him, and that was the end of his run. He was written off television. He was gone. The group he founded turned on him when he was at his lowest, took his title, took his faction, and moved forward without him. Breaker assumed leadership of the Vision. Paul Heyman stayed on as the manager, and Rollins was left with a surgically repaired shoulder and zero presence on WWE programming. Now here is where the ripple effects come in. Following Rollins' injury, plans were reportedly altered to have CM Punk defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Braun Breaker, and Cody Rhodes defend the WWE Championship against Roman Reigns. The original plan for WrestleMania 42 would have seen Rollins defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Roman Reigns. That was the reported main event, but because Rollins went down, everything had to be reshuffled. Then the decision to make the shocking title switch to Drew McIntyre back in January changed the plans yet again, leading to a cascade of shifting WrestleMania cards. One injury created a chain reaction that is still being felt right now. Meanwhile, Rollins was recovering. He underwent rotator cuff surgery in October 2025, and he had previously noted a recovery timeline of around 4 to 6 months. That meant a potential in-ring return sometime around April 2026. Specifically, that window lands squarely in April, putting WrestleMania 42 in range. The target was always WrestleMania. The question was whether his body would cooperate. In the weeks leading up to Elimination Chamber, there were hints that something was brewing. Mysterious masked men started appearing on WWE programming, targeting members of the Vision. Nobody knew who was under the mask. There were decoys. There were misdirections. It's believed that some of those masked men weren't actually Rollins in person, but the idea was always for him to be revealed as the masked man in the end. The seeds were planted over several weeks, and the whole time, Rollins maintained that he was not ready to come back. On ESPN's First Take, just before Elimination Chamber, he said it directly. "No, I will not be able to do anything this weekend at WWE Elimination Chamber, but we're getting close to a return." He explained his shoulder was out of the sling, that it was feeling better, but that they were not all the way there yet. So in the public eye, the message was clear. Seth Rollins would not be at Elimination Chamber, except that was not the truth. The 2026 Elimination Chamber took place on February 28, 2026, at a sold-out United Center in Chicago. The men's chamber match featured 6 competitors fighting for a WrestleMania title opportunity. Among them were Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, Logan Paul, Trick Williams, LA Knight, and Javon Evans. Logan Paul eliminated Javon Evans, LA Knight, and Trick Williams, running through the field. Paul was on a roll, racking up eliminations and looking like a real threat. He was operating as a member of the Vision, aligned with Paul Heyman. Everything was going according to plan for the faction, and then it all unraveled. Near the end of the men's Elimination Chamber match, a masked individual attempted to climb the chamber structure, but was stopped by security. Adam Pearce removed the mask, revealing a random person. That was the first decoy. The crowd saw it, and you could feel the energy shift. Everyone knew something was coming. The first masked man was a distraction, a classic misdirection. Officials dealt with it and thought the threat was handled. It was not handled. As Trick Williams was being escorted out following his elimination, another masked figure entered the chamber. This one went straight for Logan Paul. The man confronted Logan Paul, who is now aligned with the Vision. The masked figure delivered a sharp backheel kick followed by a stomp. If you are a WWE fan, you know what move that is. That is Seth Rollins' finisher, the stomp. The second that foot came down, the building knew. Cody Rhodes capitalized and pinned Logan Paul, eliminating him from the match. Then came the reveal. After the elimination, the hood and mask were removed. It was Seth Rollins. The Chicago crowd reacted loudly as Rollins stood inside the chamber. Michael Cole on commentary was losing it. The man who gave birth to the Vision, the man who was excommunicated from the Vision, the man who has payback on the Vision. Seth Rollins is back. Wade Barrett was astonished, claiming that Rollins was still supposed to be recovering from shoulder surgery. And that is the thing, and he was. He was not cleared. He came back to do one thing and one thing only: take out Logan Paul and send a message to the Vision that he had not forgotten what they did to him. After the attack, Rollins looked at Cody Rhodes, who had just benefited from his interference. There was a stare down. After revealing himself, Rollins had a long, tense stare down with Rhodes before leaving through the crowd. No words, no handshake, just eye contact, and then he was gone. Now, the aftermath of the chamber match itself was chaotic beyond just Rollins. Drew McIntyre then attacked Rhodes, and that distraction was enough for Orton to hit an RKO for the win. So Randy Orton won the men's Elimination Chamber match, earning himself a world title shot at WrestleMania. But the moment everyone was talking about was not Orton's win. It was Rollins' return. Seth Rollins' return adds a major storyline heading into WrestleMania. The man who built the Vision got kicked out when he was injured and came back wearing a mask to destroy the group from the inside. That is the story. The return at Elimination Chamber was just the beginning, because when Raw came around on March 2nd, 2026, the question was, what now? General Manager Adam Pearce indicated that he would address the situation of the re-emerging visionary at the top of the show. Everyone expected some kind of confrontation, some explanation, some next step. And they got one, but not the kind anyone was prepared for. The night began with Paul Heyman in the Vision talking about Logan Paul's loss at Elimination Chamber and blaming Seth Rollins. Heyman went on the offensive verbally. Heyman insulted Rollins and said he steals the spotlight from others. Then Adam Pearce came out and said Rollins was not cleared to compete. That should have been the end of it. Rollins is not cleared. He cannot wrestle. The situation should be contained. But Seth Rollins does not do contained. Suddenly, masked men ran in. In the chaos, Rollins appeared and attacked Heyman with a chair and hit him with a stomp. Heyman was left bleeding and taken away in an ambulance. Paul Heyman, the Oracle, the mouthpiece, the man who orchestrated the betrayal, was laid out, bloodied, and stretchered out. LA Knight was revealed as the ambulance driver and drove Heyman away. Think about what Rollins did here. He could not wrestle, he was not cleared. But he showed up with a steel chair and took out the brains of the operation. He did not need to wrestle anyone to send a message. He just needed a chair and a stomp. That is the level of chaos Rollins brought back with him. As Demori from Yahoo Sports noted, him curb-stomping Logan Paul at Elimination Chamber, and then Paul Heyman, and Heyman getting bloodied up on Raw was dramatic. He went on to point out that Paul E. dangerously doesn't get beaten up by just anybody. He reserves that for top talent and top stories. Then, the following week on the March 9th edition of Raw, things escalated further. The episode opened as Adam Pearce called Seth Rollins to the ring, saying that they needed to have a conversation. The conversation was about the masked men, the attacks, and the fact that Rollins was putting himself in danger by engaging with the Vision while not medically cleared. But Rollins had other plans. That led to a whole group of masked men rushing up and into the ring, one of whom unmasked as Rollins. Chaos erupted on the March 9th episode of WWE Raw at Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington, when dozens of masked figures suddenly surrounded the ring. The unusual situation escalated as the masked group surrounded the ring, creating what looked like a human shell game. When Logan Paul and Austin Theory showed up, Rollins put his mask back on and lost himself amidst the large group of masked mystery men. The confrontation nearly turned physical, but the masked figures once again swarmed the ring and began shifting positions, creating confusion about which person was actually Rollins. They then escaped the ring, and the Vision then had to deal with LA Knight and the Usos, who came down to attack in succession. Rollins himself explained the strategy on Good Morning Football. "We got in there, we protected Seth Rollins, we confused everybody, and we got out of there." He admitted plainly, that was what we had to do, because Seth Rollins, that's me. I'm not cleared yet. I can't get into any real physicality. He also said he needed to protect this shoulder for maybe another couple weeks or so. So there it is. The man orchestrated an army of decoys to cover for the fact that his body was not ready. He was playing a chess match with the Vision while operating at half capacity. That is the chaos of Seth Rollins in a nutshell. Now, Paul Heyman is not the type to take a beating and do nothing about it. He is one of the most calculating minds in professional wrestling history. And after getting stomped and bloodied by Rollins on that March 2nd Raw, he started making moves. On the March 16th edition of Raw, the dynamics shifted again. Rollins spoke about taking out everyone who is associated with Paul Heyman, including whatever is left of the Vision. He targeted Paul Heyman during his promo as the masked men surrounded the ring. Rollins made it clear that anyone under Heyman's umbrella was a target. He was not just going after one person, he was going after the entire ecosystem. That is when Heyman played his card. He revealed that he still has Brock Lesnar in his corner, as the Beast came to his longtime advocate's rescue. Brock Lesnar, the man who has terrorized WWE for over 2 decades, the former UFC heavyweight champion. Heyman brought him in specifically to deal with the Rollins problem. For a moment, it looked like the WrestleMania plan had materialized. Rollins versus Lesnar at WrestleMania 42. It would have been a rematch of their classic encounters and a story that writes itself. Heyman sends his enforcer to destroy the man who attacked him. But then, Brock decimated all of Rollins' masked men and walked towards him. But the lights went out, and Obafemi entered the fray to seemingly take out Brock Lesnar. Obafemi, the NXT call-up, the Man Mountain. He blindsided Lesnar, and WWE moved fast. Femi answered the challenge after hitting Lesnar with an impressive delayed pop-up powerbomb. That led to WWE quickly making Lesnar versus Femi official for Las Vegas. And just like that decision didn't just create a new marquee match. It removed Brock from Seth's path. Suddenly, Rollins' WrestleMania opponent became the biggest question hanging over Raw. Rollins himself showed no signs of slowing down. On the March 23rd edition of Raw at the TD Garden in Boston, the chaos hit a new level. Paul Heyman appeared in the ring to announce that a restraining order had been filed against Rollins to protect the sanctity of the bloodline. A restraining order on a wrestling show, but that is the level Heyman operates at. He uses every tool available to him, legal or otherwise. Did that stop Rollins? Of course not. When a masked man appeared on the commentary table, it was revealed to be Rollins. However, before he could enter the ring, local police intervened. A defiant Rollins managed to land one punch on Heyman before being tackled, cuffed, and escorted out of the arena. Seth Rollins got arrested on Raw, handcuffed and dragged out by police. And even then, he managed to get one shot in on Heyman before they took him away. That Sportskeeda report noted that on this past week on WWE Raw, Paul Heyman had Seth Rollins arrested after he violated a restraining order and went within 50 feet of the Oracle. Rollins went as far as to strike his former manager after he brought up his wife and daughter and had to be taken away by the police. Heyman made it personal by mentioning Rollins' family. That is what pushed him over the edge. And then Heyman delivered the threat that has everyone talking. In a recent interview, Heyman revealed that the Visionary would indeed have a singles match at WrestleMania 42, but who the opponent would be remained a mystery. Heyman's exact words were chilling. If Seth Rollins appears at WrestleMania, it will be his last WrestleMania, and that will be at the hands of whomever I choose will go up against Seth Rollins. So now Heyman is not just trying to stop Rollins, he is trying to end his career. So where does this all lead? WrestleMania 42 is on April 18 and 19 at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The event is weeks away, and the single biggest unanswered question on the entire card is, who does Seth Rollins face? The original plan was clear. WWE had initially planned for Rollins to face the Vision's Braun Breaker at WrestleMania 42. The story was perfect. Rollins built the Vision. Breaker betrayed him and took over. Rollins comes back from injury and gets his revenge at the biggest show of the year. When rumors emerged late last year that Rollins was in play to perform at the April Mega event, the expected plan was a match with Breaker, the man who decided to kick him out of the Vision and take over leadership. But then injuries hit. However, the rising star suffered a hernia during an episode of Raw early last month. Breaker went down and was written off television. The two wrestlers he brought into the faction, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, are currently out with injuries. Both of them. The two guys Rollins brought into the Vision, both gone, leaving Paul or Austin Theory as the only members left. Now, there has been some movement on this. According to a new report from WrestleVotes Radio, there is real optimism within WWE that Braun Breaker will be cleared in time for WrestleMania 42. That is the match everyone wants. That is the match the story has been building towards since October. If Breaker can get cleared, the booking practically does itself. But there is still no official word on Breaker's medical clearance. If Breaker cannot go, there are backup options. A recent report suggested Rollins could face Paul at WrestleMania 42. According to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Seth Rollins versus either Logan Paul or Braun Breaker seems like a likely direction. However, there is a complication. On this week's edition of Monday Night Raw, it was revealed that he and Theory will target the Usos tag titles going forward. That was seen as likely the first piece of evidence Breakker was nearing a return, since Rollins doesn't have a dance partner for the event. The thinking being, if Logan Paul is locked into a tag title program, WWE must have someone else in mind for Rollins, and that someone else is Breakker. There were also reports that took things in another direction entirely. Reports then emerged claiming that Seth Rollins would face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 42, with the storyline being that Lesnar would avenge Paul Heyman following Rollins' brutal attack on Raw. But fans recently found out that Brock Lesnar will instead take on Omos at the grandest stage of them all this year, or as other reports suggest, Obafemi. Either way, Lesnar has been rerouted. Through all of this, there is the question of whether Rollins is even healthy enough to wrestle a full match. Seth Rollins is back on WWE television, but he is not yet medically cleared to compete in the ring. Every appearance he has made since Elimination Chamber has been carefully structured to protect his shoulder. The masked men, the hit-and-run attacks, the chair shot on Heyman, all of it has been designed so Rollins does not have to take bumps or engage in prolonged physical contact. As one columnist noted, the big black hoodie he's been wearing on TV is hiding the fact that he's not 100% yet. There is also the emotional side of this. Rollins sat down with the Boston Herald and opened up about his future. Rollins has been in the business for a long time, and he admitted that he might be on the verge of retirement. He did not put a date on it, but he acknowledged the reality. He said, "I'm closer to the end of my career than the beginning, but I still feel like I have a lot to give." That is a statement that adds weight to everything he is doing right now. This is not a man coasting. This is a man who knows the clock is ticking and is determined to make every moment count. And he is also not shy about calling people out. In recent media appearances, Rollins took aim at Tom Brady of all people. "I don't think Tom Brady has the guts," Rollins stated, referencing Brady's comments dismissing professional wrestling. He called WWE wrestling cute, as he was comparing it to other athletes. He said this to Logan Paul in one of his interviews. Rollins did not appreciate that. He made it known. 12 months ago, Seth Rollins dispatched both CM Punk and Roman Reigns to claim victory in the main event of Night 1 of WrestleMania 41. He did that thanks to more than a little help from Paul Heyman, who betrayed both of his former clients. Now Heyman is his enemy. Punk and Reigns are fighting each other for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 42, and Rollins is on the outside looking in, fighting to get back what was taken from him. However, there won't be a repeat of that main event appearance for Rollins in 2026. He admitted the situation is bittersweet, but he said he is proud that the World Heavyweight Championship, the title he worked to establish in the main event picture, will be featured as the main event even without him in it. So here is where we stand. Seth Rollins returned at Elimination Chamber wearing a mask. He attacked Logan Paul. He stomped Paul Heyman and sent him to the hospital. He led an army of masked men on Raw. He got Brock Lesnar redirected into a different match. He got arrested. He punched Heyman while in handcuffs, and he still does not have a confirmed WrestleMania opponent. The man came back to WWE and has not stopped creating chaos for a single week since. Whether it is Braun Breakker, Logan Paul, or some wild card that Heyman pulls out of thin air, the story of Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 42 is the most unpredictable thing on the card right now. The pieces are still moving. The opponent is still unknown. And Rollins' own body is still a question mark. But what is not a question is that Seth Rollins has made his presence felt in a way that nobody can ignore. He came back and turned the entire road to WrestleMania upside down. That is the story. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think Rollins should face at WrestleMania 42? And if you have not already, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do not miss our coverage as the WrestleMania card continues to take shape. We will see you in the next one.